Biography of James Monroe. Chapter 1. Early Life and Education. James Monroe was born on April 28, 1758, in Westmoreland County, Virginia. He came from a middle-class family and was the son of Spence Monroe and Elizabeth Jones Monroe. His father died when James was just a young boy, and he was raised by his mother. Monroe grew up in a time when America was still under British rule. He went to a local school and showed an early interest in learning. In 1774, at the age of 16, Monroe entered the College of William and Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia. However, his education was interrupted by the American Revolution. Monroe left college to join the Continental Army in 1776. He became a lieutenant and fought in several important battles, including the Battle of Trenton. His military service helped shape his character, and he gained valuable leadership skills during this time. After the war, Monroe went back to school and completed his education. He studied law and was admitted to the bar in 1780. His legal training helped him later in his political career. Monroe quickly became involved in public service and began to establish himself as a rising star in Virginia politics. Chapter 2. Early Political Career. James Monroe's political career began in 1782 when he was elected to the Virginia House of Delegates. During his time in the House, he worked to support the rights of the American people and protect the newly formed nation from foreign threats. He was a strong supporter of states' rights and believed in a limited role for the federal government. In 1790, Monroe was appointed to the U.S. Senate, where he served until 1794. As a senator, he supported policies that favored the common people and opposed the strong centralized government promoted by Alexander Hamilton and the Federalists. Monroe believed that the nation's government should be more democratic and serve the interests of the people. In 1794, President George Washington appointed Monroe as the U.S. ambassador to France. This was a significant role that allowed Monroe to represent the United States in Europe. His time in France was marked by his efforts to strengthen relations with the French government and protect American interests during a time of political instability in Europe. Chapter 3. Governor of Virginia. In 1799, Monroe returned to Virginia and became the state's governor. He served 2 terms as governor, from 1799 to 1802. During his time as governor, Monroe worked to improve Virginia's economy and supported the expansion of the United States. He was a strong advocate for internal improvements, such as the building of roads and canals, which would help connect the states and boost trade. Monroe also focused on education during his time as governor. He believed that a strong education system was essential for the success of the new republic. He worked to improve public education in Virginia and supported the establishment of new schools. His leadership as governor helped him gain a reputation as a capable and effective leader. Monroe's time as governor prepared him for future roles in national politics. It also allowed him to build a strong political network, which would be important as he moved forward in his career. Chapter 4. Ambassador to Great Britain. In 1803, President Thomas Jefferson appointed James Monroe as the U.S. ambassador to Great Britain. Monroe was sent to London to help negotiate a treaty with the British government. The United States needed to settle several issues with Britain, including trade and territorial disputes, to maintain peace and stability. While in London, Monroe worked to secure American interests, but his time as ambassador was marked by difficulty. Relations between the U.S. and Britain were tense, and Monroe had trouble reaching an agreement with the British government. Despite his efforts, Monroe's time in London was not as successful as he had hoped. However, his diplomatic experience in Europe helped prepare him for future roles in international relations. It also gave him a broader understanding of the challenges facing the United States as it tried to establish itself as a strong and independent nation. Chapter 5. Secretary of State. In 1811, James Monroe was appointed as the U.S. Secretary of State by President James Madison. As Secretary of State, Monroe played a key role in shaping American foreign policy during a time of conflict. One of his most important achievements during this time was his role in negotiating the Treaty of Ghent, which ended the War of 1812 between the United States and Great Britain. Monroe also worked on expanding the United States during his time as Secretary of State. He was a key supporter of the acquisition of Florida from Spain, which was completed in 1819. This acquisition helped to secure the southern borders of the United States and expanded American territory. Monroe's work as Secretary of State made him a highly respected figure in American politics. His diplomatic successes, particularly the Treaty of Ghent and the acquisition of Florida, helped to establish him as a capable leader who was committed to strengthening the United States. Chapter 6. The Presidency Begins. In 1816, James Monroe ran for president and won by a large margin. He became the 5th President of the United States in 1817. Monroe's presidency is often remembered for the sense of national unity and optimism that characterized the period known as the Era of Good Feelings. During this time, there was little political opposition, and the country was enjoying relative peace and prosperity. One of the key goals of Monroe's presidency was to strengthen the United States' position in the world. He worked to improve the country's economy and expand its territory. Monroe also sought to promote unity within the nation and strengthen the bonds between the states. Monroe's presidency began at a time when the United States was still recovering from the effects of the War of 1812. Monroe worked to help the country heal from the war and move forward as a stronger, more unified nation. Chapter 7. The Monroe Doctrine. One of the most important moments of Monroe's presidency came in 1823, when he issued the Monroe Doctrine. The Monroe Doctrine was a bold declaration that warned European nations not to interfere in the affairs of the Western Hemisphere. Monroe believed that the United States should be free from European control and influence, and he wanted to prevent European powers from colonizing or interfering with nations in North and South America. The Monroe Doctrine was a significant foreign policy statement that became a cornerstone of U.S. policy for many years. It helped establish the United States as a dominant power in the Americas and sent a strong message to European countries that the Western Hemisphere was off limits for further colonization. The Monroe Doctrine had a lasting impact on American foreign policy and shaped the United States' relations with European nations and its neighbors in the Americas. It also marked the United States as a country that would stand firm in protecting its interests and the interests of the Americas. Chapter 8. The Expansion of the United States. During Monroe's presidency, the United States continued to expand its territory. In addition to acquiring Florida, the United States also focused on exploring and selling new lands in the West. Monroe supported the expansion of the country's borders, believing that it would strengthen the nation and help it grow. Monroe's administration was involved in negotiating treaties with other countries to settle boundary disputes. One of the most important agreements was the 1818 Treaty with Britain, which established the 49th parallel as the boundary between the United States and Canada in the western part of North America. Monroe's foreign policy efforts helped to secure the United States borders and solidified its position in North America. The expansion of the United States during Monroe's presidency was also marked by the beginning of the westward migration of settlers. Monroe supported the idea of manifest destiny, the belief that the United States was destined to expand across the continent. Chapter 9. Domestic Challenges. While Monroe's presidency is often remembered for its successes, it was not without challenges. The country faced economic difficulties during the early years of his presidency, including the Panic of 1819, which caused widespread unemployment and financial hardship. Monroe worked to address these economic problems by supporting internal improvements and seeking ways to stabilize the economy. Another challenge Monroe faced was the issue of slavery. As the United States expanded westward, the question of whether new states would allow slavery became a contentious issue. Monroe supported the Missouri Compromise of 1820, which allowed Missouri to join the Union as a slave state, while Maine joined as a free state. This compromise helped to temporarily ease tensions between the North and South over the issue of slavery. Monroe's presidency also saw the rise of political factions, as disagreements over economic policies and the role of government began to divide the country. Despite these challenges, Monroe remained focused on the long-term goals of strengthening the nation and promoting unity. Chapter 10. Legacy and Conclusion. James Monroe's presidency is often remembered as a time of national unity and expansion. The Monroe Doctrine, his efforts to secure American borders, and his support for westward expansion all helped to shape the future of the United States. Monroe's leadership during this time helped to establish the United States as a growing power in the Western Hemisphere. Monroe's legacy is also marked by his commitment to preserving American independence and sovereignty. He believed in the importance of protecting the United States from foreign influence and ensuring that the nation could grow and prosper on its own terms. James Monroe passed away on July 4, 1831, at the age of 73, the same day as John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. Monroe's contributions to the founding and growth of the United States have made him an important figure in American history. Today, he is remembered as a key leader who helped shape the United States during its formative years.